MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey! Hello, welcome to another edition of the Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF podcast.
Hello, friend.
Did you see the video today?
Jim Nance?
All the Big Ten football highlights with the CBS college football theme in the background of them?
No. Was it weird?
It was weird. One of the things that was weird, because you're used to seeing it with the SEC music, one of the things that was like this hype video that was weird was they're showing all these moments, but it's like Rutgers touchdown, Pat Fitzgerald slow motion screaming. I'm like, guys, play the hits here. Give me Ohio State. Give me a Harbaugh. Come on, let's not overthink this. We don't have to get everybody in.
Yeah, give me a Saquon Barkley 80-yard run. You know, maybe even hell, you could throw in a Matt Leinart touchdown pass this time.
That crossed my mind too.
You know, I saw, you know, on classic social media, the UC Regents trying to flex their muscles like this deal was signed, like there ain't no coming back. Yeah, I was in the car this morning and Brett McMurphy was on and they asked him, because what's it like over $1 billion a year, right? $7 billion total or something.
Yeah, 7. Yes. Yep.
They asked him what he thought.
A year.
He thought what the whoever's like some guy filling in for Adam Shine asked him what he thought the influence of the ad in the LA schools meant to this deal, and he said, you know, it's hard to truly around. People would say 15 to 20% value just of those two schools.
Zeus says, "Don't sleep on Nebraska this year, boys."
I did, but Wilner was tweeting this morning that like the UC's trying to block UCLA.
Oh yeah. He put it at 10 to 15%, which seems way too high to me. I put it at like 0.2%. Yeah. I think what somebody told me around is that what they might be trying to do is just get some money for Cal out of the deal. Which okay.
Why I feel no sympathy for Cal, and as someone who grew up going with his dad to Memorial Stadium, is that like if it was Oregon or Washington or a program that truly, truly cared, and I'm not saying the coaches don't care, but the athletic program, the ultimate school,
the institution, yeah,
the institution just doesn't give a shit. So if you were screwing someone, it truly meant something to, right?
Yeah,
like Oregon, hell, Oregon State, Washington State, like care, right? I'm sorry if we list the Pac-12 schools, the institution Cal is easily at the bottom, right?
Yep.
So that's where, as someone who honestly wishes these schools would stay and we could be nostalgic and keep what we had going, which is clearly never going to happen, they're the last school that kind of gets to, you know, bitch and moan and try to make a big deal. And I think,
and I don't know that I don't know if they have or not. I haven't heard Cal say anything, but
you might not have noticed. If you ask the president, you're like, what?
Well, there was some story that they would have been okay with it. So I don't know. If you are watching us on YouTube, all right, like, subscribe, maybe set a little alert for this channel. We appreciate that, helping our YouTube channel grow. If you're listening to the podcast, that's great too. Give us a review. 5 stars, Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that. You help us grow that way as well. Share it with friends. Share it with enemies. We appreciate that big time.
Yep. Please do it. Share it with your friends. Leave reviews. We'll get back to the mailbag coming up here soon. Football season right around the corner. Fire in those mailbag questions in our Apple iTunes. And subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. Podcast, tell everyone about it. I was eating dinner last night with a former UC Davis football player that played in the 80s with Chris Peterson and Dan Hawkins and Gary Patterson and Bellotti. I mean, just some of the stalwart names that we all grew up hearing big stories about. And he's like, know multiple people that love the pod. So we are well represented in the 530 area, you know, the Davis, Woodland, Dixon, Winners, you know, West Sac area.
That market size that the Big Ten's interested.
Yeah, well, they're adding lane on each side of the causeway. I don't know if you knew that.
I haven't driven over the causeway in probably about a year. No, actually, I have. I didn't notice though. Shave it or save it. Somebody asked. That'll be coming back too. Hey,
leave Trey alone. Leave Trey alone.
John, yeah, leave Trey alone. John was probably having dinner last night with a Tito's. Extend summertime. That's our slogan, not theirs. We are sponsored by our friends at Tito's Handmade Vodka. How amazing it is. 25 years, over 25 years, they've been going strong since Tito Beverage built his very own distillery. put his life savings into it, and then became one of the great vodkas in the world. Award winner. Chairman's trophy for the world's best vodka tonic. Double gold at the World Spirits Competition, and the official drink of Haberman and Middlecoff.
Yep. I actually, I was planning on driving from Davis back to Walnut Creek last night, and I decided not to. But I didn't have a cocktail, but a round got ordered, and the round got ordered. It turned out by Bob Meyer's brother-in-law, and guess what he said? We need some Tito's and sodas. So about 4 of them got delivered. So, I didn't know it at the time, but when I'm driving home with my brother, he's like, "You know who that was, right?" I'm like, "No, I don't know who that was. We're just talking normal." And he's like, "Oh, it's Bob Meyer's brother-in-law, married to his sister." So nice guy, told some good stories. Had a couple Tito's and sodas. Like
there you go. How about a Tito Rita, John? 2 ounces of handmade vodka, a little orange liqueur, some lime juice, a 1/4 ounce of agave. Woo! That sounds fantastic. Maybe a Tito soda lime. That's an easy one. Extra lime, my order. But however you enjoy it responsibly. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Namely 80 proof. Crafted to be savored responsibly. Go check out Tito'sVodka.com for all these great recipe ideas. And I think we'll break something out new on Saturday night. Break out a new. I might try something Saturday night. We're going live on Saturday night after Niners Vikings. So, how do I look?
Good. 1, 2, 3, Tito's.
Woo!
That's what. If I knew Dan Campbell, I would tell him to do that breakdown.
We could use Dan Campbell. Give us a little pep talk. Dan Campbell's put down a Tito's or 2 in his life. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, 1,000%. Dan Campbell. What would you guess? Dan Campbell is 6'5", 275.
Yeah, I mean, he looks incredible. He's still got like that. He clearly had an elbow injury at one point in his career. If you haven't watched Hard Knocks, we are pro Hard Knocks. John highly recommended. I watched both episodes yesterday and enjoyed it.
You agree? Easy watch, just a solid football couple hours.
Yeah, it was really good.
Jared Goff throw a couple touchdowns.
All those guys that were players that are now coaches on the staff. You described it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of Kyle goes a bunch of guys that look like me and you that like this guy even play high school football, and then they all end up getting NFL jobs. Dan Campbell went the opposite. He got a team that, like, if you had to strap it up, the Lions would be a 10-point favorite against every team in the league, right? They got quarterbacks, DBs, tight ends, running backs. I mean, they got it all. Mark Brunell, underrated player. Like, Mark Brunell was good.
Was he underrated?
Well, I think he made Pro Bowls.
Well, I know. I don't think he's underrated. I think people think Mark Brunell is a great quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't think people really talk about him.
Well, he disappeared. It's not like he went straight into coaching.
True, but I just mean for a guy that, like, how many Pro Bowls do you think Mark Brunell made?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, 5, 6 would have been my guess.
Yeah, maybe I'm overhyped. 3, but
okay,
he had three.
He's a really good player.
Yeah, really good player. From a 5th round pick to a 16-year career, not bad.
I want one of those Lions grit hats. It looks like they're only like team issue. I don't think they sell them.
Yeah.
Do you notice one of the coaches wearing a hat that just says grit?
Feels like he stole it from Pardon My Take.
Yeah, it is grit week.
They did have grit, the definition, in the team room, right?
You think Dan Campbell stole grit from Pardon My Take, or did Pardon My take grit from Dan Campbell?
I think Pardon My Take stole just grit from football. I mean, it's just
yeah.
I think it's a fate. I mean, isn't Angela Duckworth the most important characteristic of a successful human being is grit? I mean, I think that's like her book. I think it's called Grit.
Grit, yeah. Is
that Duckworth's book?
Yeah, it's Duckworth's book. There's the other one, Talent is Overrated, by Jeff. Anyway.
What's Tim Grover? Just don't be a pussy?
Yeah. Tim Grover. I don't know. All right, John. As you said today, choose love. Love always wins. We finally got our photo. Kyle Shanahan and Kirk Cousins.
Enlarge that guy. That's what I was. It's better than I expected it to be. That photo of the two guys coming out, and it felt like this feels like Kyle made an effort to go see his guy, right? This is clearly, you can see the purple. That's connected to the players' locker room, maybe the training room where the Vikings are going to come out. Maybe the Niners did too. I don't know the exact setup, but the Vikings are coming out here. Kyle Shanahan made an effort to walk over there and greet his guy. That, let's be real, this was a marriage. Part of the reason we talk so much about this, because it was destined to happen. Like two people that, when they're 20 years old, like these two people are getting married, they're having kids, they're gonna spend the rest of their life together. It felt lock. And up until a crazy night when Bill Belichick or morning texts Kyle Shanahan, like, you got 30 minutes, I'll send you my guy. And the world changed. That guy was going to get married and met some girl at a bar and never looked back. I still think you don't ever forget about your, a true love that didn't happen. And that's what this feels like on both ends. Like, it's obviously been very lucrative for Kirk. I would say the Minnesota Vikings, his career's gone pretty good there, right? He's thrown a bunch of touchdowns. He's made a ton of money. I think he's earned a lot of respect in the league, and Kyle obviously has won 4 playoff games, also made a ton of money, contract extensions, but the way they're looking into each other's eyes, it was like, we know what could have been, we know. You can't quantify what would have happened because it would have been lucrative and just fun. We kind of speak the same language. We're both just kind of geeky in our own little weird ways. I ended up getting Zimmer, who's the angriest asshole ever. Kyle's like, I got Jimmy, who forced me to trade 17 picks to get up this other guy, even though it went pretty well, but didn't text back. This could have been great, man.
I quote it sometimes because I think it's such a great line, but the old Garth Brooks song, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. If Trey Lance turns out to be what they want Trey Lance to be, then as Rascal Flatts saying, God bless the broken road that led me to you. I think it's probably for the best, that sometimes what you want, the way you would completely control the situation isn't actually, it might be safe, but it may not be the thing that can take you to the top.
I think there's a chance that if this marriage had happened, the Niners made the playoffs more than just 2 times over 5 years, but have less overall playoff wins.
Yeah.
To me, there's a chance they have 1 playoff win and 4 playoff appearances or something.
Or no Super Bowl appearances.
I mean, guy, they might have had 1 playoff win, and that might have been in like the first round.
Yeah.
But I could also see a bad home playoff loss where Captain Kirk throws a couple picks, and everyone's like, we can't win with this guy. Kyle's like, no, I believe he got us to 12 wins.
Well, he's you've heard the phrase golden handcuffs. I heard it like when I lived in the city. It was like, rent control is golden handcuffs because the rent.
I thought that's what Elon and the elites use in their orgy parties.
No, I mean maybe. But the rent is so low that you won't leave, but that means you'll just end up living in a 1-bedroom apartment forever because it feels like you can't give up good rent. And I think in some ways Kirk is golden handcuffs. Like, it would have been perfect for Kyle in so many ways, and yet it'd be so hard to upgrade, right? You wouldn't find a guy. You would just keep saying to yourself, well, I want a little bit of a better quarterback, but it's really hard to find somebody to replace him, so I'll just never take the step back necessary in order to take 2 steps forward. And, the Vikings didn't have anything, so this is a great option for them. But ultimately, at some point, biting the bullet and drafting a quarterback number 3 gives you a better chance to reach the mountaintop.
I even think in a weird way, because Jimmy was a less potent thrower than Cousins, it forced Kyle and John kind of to build the team and think about game plans probably a little different than they even might have with Kirk, which might have led them to some losses that might not have happened. Like, ultimately, Cousins got good enough pretty quickly that, like, is he – not that you got to have – there's a certain amount of attempts good players have to have. But Jimmy was cool with, like, every game throwing 18 – he'll do whatever, right? He was just cool, just telling him what to do. He'll execute as well as he can, make some mistakes. I think once you kind of view yourself as a better player, like, one of Jimmy's best characteristics – sometimes in a given play, he does dumb shit, but I do think he understands exactly who he is. I think a knock sometimes on Cousins, just over the last 5 or 6 years, sometimes he thinks he's better than he is. Because he's kind of on this weird line where it's like, well, look at his stats, man. Pretty fucking, he can throw mid-30s, high 38 touchdowns or something. But you watch him and you go, well, he's not He's not the other group of guys, but I bet if you looked at him, he's like, I view myself, maybe not Patrick Mahomes or whatever, but I'm much closer to him than I think the group you think I belong to.
Yeah. He's also playing with Diggs, Jefferson, Thielen, right? Now, he's not playing with great defenses, but he is playing with great weapons.
Dalvin Cook.
When healthy. Yep.
Madison, the Boise State running back's a badass.
Yeah. Yep. So, by the way, did you see that there was a fight? Not a fight, but that Adam Thielen got pissed off today? As I predicted, John, Niners spent Wednesday getting burned in the secondary. They started tackling guys to the ground today. Adam Thielen got mad about it.
Who do you attack?
I don't know anybody in particular. One of the Vikings reporters tweeted out. I mean, you tweeted the video or retweeted the video of Dre Greenlaw not detaching himself from a tackle, but I think it's just going to be the nature of this defense. They're an edgy group.
Yeah. I could see Thielen. I would imagine. You see the highlight of Justin Jefferson's one-handed catch. He was like 7 yards out of bounds, but it was like, Jesus, can every guy in the league now catch one-handed? Like how many of the top 20 wide receivers can pretty easily, if you put in their vicinity, like come down with a one-handed catch? It feels like the percentage is pretty high.
Really high. I
felt like when we were kids, I mean, a one-handed catch would have been a play of the month, right? I mean, a legit, like in traffic, like a.
You think it's glove related?
I think that's added to it. Yeah, it's like, are guys really hitting 350-yard drives, or is it the technology in the ball is so insane, right? I mean, I think. Have you ever felt one of those gloves? I've seen people argue, old players, like everyone talks a lot of shit about the Stickum crew, but it's closer than people ever want to acknowledge.
Yeah, yeah. I do think like with something that's mechanical, like driving the ball or throwing the ball, there's been such a progression in the video technology that you can really hone in every centimeter, every
pitching arm slot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but true, but video.
But I agree with your ultimate point, which is it does feel like it's happening left and right. Maybe guys used to be kind of afraid to do it. Like, this is bullshit. Why am I going to try and catch it with one hand when I can catch it with two and not get yelled at?
Wonder if like training regimens with jugs machines have changed. Were you just working on it? Right. You know, like the Steph guy who's kind of what's his trainer's name that now trains a bunch of people. Like you just get a specific trainer. He does some
with the tennis balls.
Yeah. You know, some of those hand-eye deals.
What's that guy's name? I remember early when Steph was blowing up, he was doing interviews left and right.
I think he still does a lot. Hand, I thought.
Not Hand. Is it
Jimmy Hand, Bill Hand? I thought it's something Ham or Hand or something like that's his last name. I thought he trains Joel Embiid now too.
Oh, Brandon Payne.
Brandon Payne. Okay, I'm a little off. You can still, if you're in the car on the right day, it's like John Lund. Coming up next, Brandon Payne tells us about Steph Curry's new ball trick.
Yeah. All right. Should we jump into some stuff?
Yeah.
Do we want to start with
start with whatever.
Well, I know. Whatever. Deshaun Watson's suspension was announced today, John. 11 games and a $5 million fine, which means he'll return for the Browns game against the Texans. NFL Network has reported that the Browns will not trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. And so we can talk about the Deshaun element of this, but there's a preseason game on Saturday. Then everybody plays a preseason game Thursday. The following week.
They don't actually.
We talked about this. What is it now? Is there anybody Sunday?
Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think there's just the Niners play on Thursday.
That's right, because you went to 3 preseason games. You don't have to have everybody play.
You got a lot more time.
Thank you. Yeah. You've corrected me now twice on that. But at that point in time, if no starting quarterbacks get hurt to the degree that the Niners would trade Jimmy Garoppolo, we are looking at basically a week and change before Jimmy Garoppolo would probably get released at this point. Because if he's not going to be a Brown and the Steelers aren't going to trade for him and the Texans aren't going to trade for him, then no one's going to trade for him.
Is it? I think it's on the table now that he's traded within the next 7-8 days, right? What are you, once the preseason, like once Thursday or Friday end, whatever that date is, like let's just 24th, 25th, do you really going to hold on till the 30th? Like, who just hope some guy gets hurt in a practice?
No, that's what I'm saying. The last game, 27th, is next. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday. So at that point, if no one's been hurt, isn't it time to cut him?
Yeah.
And
depending, I mean, is it at this point in time? Is it crazy to think that he's not released sometime next week? You could say, "What's the rush?" That's always the pushback. But like, what are we doing at this point? You just holding out hope that.
But you could say that for the last several weeks.
I know, but it was a little different. There, a couple things it felt like
you're waiting on
Deshaun thing, and if you're the Browns, you don't have the picks. You're waiting on him to get cut. All of a sudden, the Jets thing happened. You're like, "Oh my god!" And then it turns out it's not that bad. And worst case, he misses a game or two. So if you told me, let's just say Monday comes around and, the 49ers they worked with Jimmy. Jimmy said, could I be released? And they were cool and they released him. I don't even think it would be that crazy. Like, they held on hope through all the July, the majority of August. The main curveball was Deshaun Watson. They had one injury. In a weird way, not you and I were rooting for Zach Wilson to be fine, but like, it would have behooved them if he would have been out for the season. It didn't go that way, and they just gave him his game. Like, what's the likelihood? Like, at this point, we've seen these preseasons. Like, the Zach Wilson thing was kind of glaring because that never really happens, right? It's just none of these guys are even playing in the games now. And it's weird. Like, Stafford's kind of come back.
If I'm the Niners, though, the Zach Wilson thing. The Zach Wilson thing doesn't make me think that no one's going to get hurt. It makes me think that somebody might get hurt because he almost got hurt bad enough to have to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo.
But I think it's less likely now. All these teams are playing these guys, right?
In the third preseason, not in the second preseason game, but are they going to come back and play in the third preseason game?
Like, Bill Belichick hasn't played Mac. Like, I just think it's becoming more and more in vogue, right, to not play guys. Like, when Bill's starting to do it, that's all I'm saying. Is
Mahomes going to play again, or is he done after one game?
Yeah, I mean, he could play. Obviously, if he got hurt, they'd be desperate. But
this was the last great hope. Now, I don't think you said this just now, but it doesn't mean he couldn't be a Brown. It just means they're not going to trade for him. But is there a world where they release Jimmy Garoppolo and he signs with Cleveland?
Yeah, 100%. Don't you think?
Yes and no. I mean,
you think Jimmy Garoppolo is immediately signed, or you think it could be like?
I think he may wait.
Is he a lock to be on a team week one?
No, because I think it might be in his best interest to wait. Like, what are his options? Does he want to go sign? I don't even know really what his options would be outside of Cleveland at this point, right? But it might be in his best interest to wait a second and see if anything else happens.
You could argue he just pulls a Gruden, like Monday Night Football, just go away for a year. Sometimes just you go away, your hype grows, and then all of a sudden someone gives him like a 2-year, $60 million deal, $40 million guaranteed next year. You just don't play. You just take the year off, train, stay in shape, post some videos every once in a while of like working out with like, some guy that's like 38 that's been out of the league, like a Anquan Bolden or whatever, like somewhere in Florida, and you're just getting sweats on. You're just like, I needed to step away. There weren't any good options. I want to be fully healthy for 2023. And the hype, people just like, remember this guy? He won 4 playoff games. Remember this guy? He's played in all these big games. And your hype kind of grows. But you go to a team and you struggle. It's like you put in new tape. Everyone's like, it's just Kyle Shanahan. Stay away from that guy. Not going to happen. But I don't think if he just didn't play and just use some weird excuse like, the options suck. I didn't need the money. I just wanted to make sure I was fully healthy. I didn't quite feel right. I'll be 100% ready to go by when free agency starts, ready to land with a new team. His interest could grow.
I think it would be, he's done the thing where he joined a team in the middle of the year and it worked. And I could see him thinking he could do that again, right? Just wait, see, kind of target some teams that are good. You don't want to go do that with a shitty team, but you look up and I don't know if New Orleans would count as good, but they could be solid if something happens to Jameis, like Jimmy could join a team week 7. You know what I mean? Something like that. To me, that's a possibility.
Something happens to Trey, boom, call him back.
Comes back.
Kept him this long.
Not a terrible take, actually. Although we can talk about the Niners quarterbacks. So anyway, Deshaun will be back. Deshaun will be back against the Texans. So 11 weeks without him. which kind of seemed like the story. If he didn't get suspended for the year, the story out of Cleveland had been that they would stick with Jacoby. But 11's a long time. 11's more than half the year. So you wondered, like, if it was that long. But
well, you can't afford to be like 4-7 or something, right? You got to be like 6-5, and still to depend on him coming back and being good. I mean, we've seen it. Carson Palmer. We've seen guys take time off, and it's just he hasn't played in a long, long time. I saw a headline today that he's like, obviously they're going to put him on, like he's not going to play anymore. So it's like his reps, just an exhausting story.
You're saying he's not going to practice anymore?
I don't know, practice, no preseason games the next couple
Gotcha.
games because they need to get some other reps. I maybe they'll still practice them because even if you're not practicing quote unquote with the ones anymore, you can still get them reps. Because technically his suspension doesn't start. These suspensions don't start till week 1, so I would imagine you utilize all the time you have with them. But there's no way around it. Kind of a black mark on the NFL in terms of just this situation was just it's dragged out so long, right? To me, it's the length of this thing. I mean, we've been going. He missed. Remember at this time last year, he was like lining up at safety with this going on. So we are. How long does it feel like this has been going? A year and a half, and then it only comes back up when he comes back. This is just the return on investment on Deshaun Watson, the star player, has just been terrible. I think when you say his name, just negative connotations are struck emotionally by people. It's not a good thing.
Additionally, the Browns have matched the bad publicity that Deshaun has brought by their action. I mean, the Jimmy Haslam press conference today was not a positive for them. The interview that Deshaun did the other day.
Wait, Jimmy Haslam and D. Haslam did a press conference today?
Oh, yeah, with Andrew Berry. And it was just... Jimmy actually said, there's a lot of other players that are reporting to camp today. As if like, there's some other good stories here, people. How come nobody's talking about Myles Garrett, huh?
Well, someone asked Deshaun Watson, I just saw, he's like, why are you sorry? He's like, because I triggered a lot of people. It's like, Deshaun. Well, he's just adamant that he did nothing wrong, that all the women wanted his dick, basically. I mean, that's what he's saying, because it's out that he had sex with all, the majority of them. And he just claims it was consensual, so he's just saying they all wanted to fuck me. It's like, and he's standing by that. That's why it's just the whole thing, I think, is uncomfortable for a lot of people, because it's like the amount of women. I've always taken the stance of like, I never make the one-on-one situation. Only 2 people know, right? The Zeke and the chick, or the Roethlisberger. No one knows except truly those 2 people. Like everybody, like unless you were in the room, no one has a clue. A situation where it gets the amount of the quantity. I'm sorry, it's just hard to just say something weird. Like, how does this happen? It's unprecedented with an athlete.
He's basically saying it's 24 misunderstandings.
But there were actually way more than 24.
That's whatever the number. I mean, but Mark on the stream says, would Andy Reid sign Jimmy to back on Mahomes? Jimmy can pull a Trubisky and be the top free agent quarterback on the market next offseason.
I'm not sure who their backup is, but I doubt
Chad Henne, 37 years old, followed by Shane Buechele. Remember SMU, I think?
I think they like Chad Henne.
Yeah, I mean, he's not better than Jimmy, though. If something were to happen to Mahomes.
When they signed Chad Henne originally, it was because they wanted a married guy behind their young quarterback. But now Mahomes is like the leader and married with a kid, so maybe that goes out the window. I don't know how you transition. Like that was a big thing when Mahomes became the starter. They wanted an old guy who's married. Does that change once that guy becomes married and like 27 with a kid? I don't know.
Not necessarily. I do think it's, we'll talk about this when we look ahead to Niners Vikings on Saturday. A backup quarterback you trust, you're not really all that interested probably in incremental improvements if you trust a guy. It would be a good fit for Jimmy just because the Chiefs could do it because there's no, like the Dolphins. Could the Dolphins do it? Right?
No.
That'd be pretty.
Well, if you do it, then you're just saying Tua, you're messing with him.
Yeah, but Mahomes, he's good enough that no one would think twice about it. Could the Patriots do it?
No.
Could the Bucs do it?
Yes.
You can deal with it if Tom says yes.
Well, but you see Todd Bowles, they say he doesn't. Tom might not be back next week.
Well, yeah, because Tom would have to. Is Tom going to retire?
Well, if he did, they would be interested immediately, right?
Todd Bowles on Brady's return. We'll see. We'll talk about it next week. I'm not concerned about it right now. We're trying to practice against Tennessee and play a game. I said sometime after Tennessee. There's no definitive date. We'll keep in touch and try and find out. Those are not the words of a pre-planned absence. Doesn't seem to me.
Pretty weird.
Could he retire?
I wonder if she's trying to get him to. I wonder if he's having second thoughts. I do think his pride, I think it would be hard for him to come back and retire, don't you? And like quit. He'd feel like he's quitting on his team a little. Yeah. If he retired, it'd be pretty nuts, I think.
So,
because I don't think there would be a retire and a comeback again. If he retired, like he would be done.
Yeah,
maybe he realized football didn't mean as much to him anymore.
I wonder if he pulled the plug, missed it, came back, and then realizes he didn't miss it as much as he thought he missed it. Like you just lost a little something, and he can't get that little something back, the little thing that made him as competitive as he is at 44, 45 years old.
Just turned 45 a couple weeks ago, I think.
Like, I wonder if that little thing is gone.
Yeah, it might be. Maybe the Niners are holding out for that.
There's always going to be something, though. This is the way it works. There's always something else to hold out for, John.
You can hold out like, hey, what if Ohio State they lose CJ, just transfer portal? You hear every fucking thing. It's like, guys, but then things happen.
Think about it. This whole time we're like, what's going to happen that makes them hold on to Jimmy worthwhile for them? But a million things happen.
Yeah.
But you could always keep saying it's a Donye ruse. Yeah. Maybe it is a Donye ruse. John, trivia question for you. Do you know where the best place to be at an NFL field is?
As a fan, player, coach?
Just the best place to be.
In the end zone with the ball?
Yeah, actually, you beat me. I was going to say just next to Nick Bosa. Just on the defensive line with Nick Bosa. Because when this man's on the defensive line, all eyes, although in this particular drill here, he's getting single blocked by the left tackle, so all eyes were not on him. This video, again, from Brad of the SF Niners.
How about that D tackle coming in there as well?
Great guy. Well, this is what we saw yesterday. Remember on the Kinlaw video that it was three other guys were getting pressure too. Look at this.
Cousins would have got killed. Honestly, Cousins would have got killed here, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
God, it's a beautiful thing to watch. I mentioned this to you right before we came on, is for the hype he's getting. And I do believe now there's no like, people aren't paying enough attention. No, the hype on Nick Bosa is absurd right now. It's well earned. Sometimes hype, like this guy is, I think Giannis take a step, and then you watch him like, holy shit, right? And the hype on certain players, and it happens a lot of times in sports, and it's like, God, can we pump the brakes a little bit? I think the hype on this guy, honestly, the guy that catches this ball as well, the hype on Justin Jefferson's pretty high. Catch it one-handed, pretty sweet.
I think that was a different play, wasn't it?
Okay. Oh, you might be right.
That was the play. The video I don't have is Bosa dominating the tight end, which honestly is not even video worth playing. It goes exactly the way you think it would. You can't. Is an NFL team really going to try and block Nick Bosa with a tight end this year?
Well, not consistently. And I saw maybe Lombardi was like, I don't know why they keep throwing the tight end on him. They're not they're just running some plays.
Right.
And Bosa they're lining him up. It's an unfair, in a game plan situation, I would imagine they would avoid. But football is ultimately football. Like there aren't like, you can put three tackles over there. This play you see right here is a pretty normal play, right? Just looks like shotgun, 4 or 5 wide. Maybe there's three wide. They got a running back who's on that side to probably help Chip. He doesn't touch him. So this is not, it doesn't feel like Kevin O'Connell doing some crazy plays. Like that looks like a pretty normal formation to me, right? You can only do so much. Like you ultimately do need your left tackle, whether it's Nick Bosa or whether it's some random backup on the Texans. He's got to, that guy's got to be able to block some people throughout the season by himself, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think 20 sacks is in play if he's healthy?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this team last year was 3.1 sacks per game. In 2019, they were slightly better at 3.2 sacks per game. Maybe they could be the most productive Chris Kasarik D-line since he, with the 49ers just because it feels like Bosa's at his peak. It is going to be for everybody else, for Armstead, for Givens, for Omenahu, for Drake Jackson, for Ebukam, for Jordan Mills. It's, the year with Alden and Justin Smith was so incredible. And Justin Smith got so much, rightfully so, got so much credit for it. But this feels like it's not just one person that benefits. It's everybody's going to benefit from this guy. And part of it too is that he is not just he's going to be getting the sacks for himself. That's the part that makes him so special.
Yeah. I do think by like this third year, I guess he started kind of getting in trouble. Alden had become like, he looked just like a specimen that was an unblockable human. It's like, what is this? And what's cool to me about pass rushing, right? When you were around Alden Smith, it was like he didn't look like a lot of NFL players. But they come in all different shapes and sizes. Then just a couple years later, Khalil's drafted, and we were around him a lot, and he looked a lot different physically than Alden. And I do wonder sometimes, Alden would have been a great player if he would have had a fucking normal head on his shoulder and get arrested a lot. But a lot of the consistent best pass rushers are kind of in the Bosa Mac, Von Miller, kind of that 6'2" to 6'3", Derek Thomas, an all-time great pass rusher. When you can bend like that, part of Alden was his levers were, it was stupid how long, he's 6'6" almost, his arms. Bosa's ability to like play so low and bend is an unstoppable move, right? Like he's not, sometimes, like I think Khalil always kind of fell back on power a lot of the time because he was so strong. And sometimes just naturally, like some 330 guys, maybe not neutralize you, but they just kind of get in front of you. You just not going to get that many sacks. When you can win with speed consistently, you're just an unstoppable player. I think that's easily the best move. Just a speed rush that your speed is elite. And to me, that's what he has. Shot out of a cannon. Von Miller had that in his prime. I think from a defensive tackle, like ultimately Aaron Donald's really powerful, but he is so fast. It's like cat. It's like people like barely touch him. He gets so much hype how strong he is in the weight, but his best plays, it's like he dips before they even get him. Now it's way different inside, right? It's like a little dip as an edge rusher turning the hoop, and the way he's doing it, and he's been doing it all camp. And what these clips these 2 days are just like, how are people going to slow this guy down?
Well, he sets him up to dip around him and then just goes through him. Doesn't this set up to you like Bosa's going to go around the left tackle? Well, and then he just goes right into him. You know what? It's like he changes halfway and decides straight line will be quicker.
Well, I think we talked about it yesterday. When you're that fast, like Bosa, I wouldn't say has like an elite bull rush. Like, Khalil, I guess, would probably be one of the best bull rushes we've seen. Joey's got pretty strong. Like, to me, Joey's more of a power player. When you're that fast, if you watch that clip, the guy's like leaping back, because he doesn't want to get beat around the corner. Well, when you're leaping back, and I'm not Howard Mudd here, I don't think you're in your best position to like kind of anchor down. So all of a sudden, I think Bosa realized this guy's fucking off balance. Because he doesn't really like throttle him. He just runs right through him because he's kind of off. And then the guy's kind of like this. Most tackles, even left tackles, are not Trent Williams. Obviously, most right tackles are pretty average. And most, I would say half the left tackles around the league are very, very hit or miss. That when you're this good, you're just going to dominate. It's why the best pass rushers are dominate, right? Like who's blocking this guy, Myles Garrett, his brother went healthy. The top guys, when you watch the game on Monday or Sunday Night Football or Sunday, you're just like, if you're watching that player, you're like, what are they supposed to do? You have to cheat.
Yeah, I mean, it changes the offense.
You have to cheat.
All right, what to watch for? Saturday, we'll be on the live stream after Vikings-Niners. But we know that Trey Lance isn't playing. This is not so many. Not as many starters as we saw week 1 or in week 3. Skull.
You think they do the chant in preseason?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, I would guess they do too.
I think they do. You only get so many chances. So what to watch for? I mean, we've talked a little bit about Brock Purdy and Nate Sudfeld, and we talked a lot in the offseason about if you were going all in on Trey Lance, do you need a more experienced backup quarterback like Colt McCoy, who was available and ultimately re-signed at a low rate with the Cardinals? But we've been to a lot of practices. We watched one preseason game. It seems like there was some confidence in both Sudfeld and Purdy. So we'll put that at the top of the list of what to watch for on Saturday.
I've come around a little on Sudfeld. I just think I probably a little group thinky since the moment happened with the Eagles, and just maybe I just fell into the camp like this guy's got to suck. Everyone thought he sucked. Everyone thought the Eagles tanked because of him, so I never, I guess, took him that seriously. But I do think with the practices we've been at, he's looked very, very capable. I thought the preseason game, he made some fantastic throws. You had a prominent player shoot you a DM or text that, you know, we were being, I think, too hard on him. And I we're not alone. I think a lot of people just assume he's not very good. Like if you just ask a random person, they would go, Nate, that guy's terrible. And then you kind of just, coaches love him, players love him. He does have a very talented, he's a talented thrower of the football. I think, to me, my knock on him is like, can the guy move? And I do think it's harder to play in 2022 when you can't move. Like Colt McCoy ultimately is pretty athletic. He doesn't, like, I would imagine Nate Sudfeld has a much stronger arm than Colt McCoy, but Colt can run around even though he's 10 years older than him. But there's a reason this guy is sticking around. Now, we talked about before we hopped on, there's a bias in scouting when you like a guy, but the guy's not a very good player, but you root for him as a player. And I think it happens sometimes, like it happened with Solomon Thomas and John Lynch. I think it happened with Mayock and Cleveland Farrell, right? You can just really fall in love with the person and you like want him to be a better player. And it can happen vice versa too. The guy's such a good player, but he's a shithead and you know, but I think it happens a lot with good guys. You're like, God, I just want this guy to be good so much. And I think that could happen with the quarterback position because when you're not playing, right, your intangible stuff, like you in the office, you're doing a lot of coaching stuff. Like how often when you're watching a game on Sunday, hell, it happens on Saturday too, is the backup quarterback's there with a thing in his ear, hat on, helmet to the side, something, a clipboard, usually next to the coordinator. Like he's like playing an active role in the whole thing. And then you hear the stories of quarterbacks talking about like what he does for them during the week. It's like me and the backups meet on our off day to go over scouting reports. I would imagine sometimes the backups come prepared as well. You know, like when you go to a potluck, it's not like they show up empty-handed. I think they play a huge role in coaches. Shit, you and I, definitely just the casual fan, never see. We can't even quantify it. So if he throws if he had to start a game and he sucks, we'd just be like, screw this guy. But to Kyle, it's like, I don't think you guys understand his value because I'm with him every day. And Trey, I'm with him every day. And his value in the building of, hell, maybe he's a really positive person. Now, I'm not defending this because I think it can get you in weird spots because you can rely on that guy immediately, right? If Trey has a high ankle sprain week 1 and is out a month, I mean, there is no hiding Sudfeld. Like, you have to play. And I think that's where I think those guys would say, well, we feel pretty confident about it. It's like, well, I would bet against it, but I'm prepared. I might be wrong. The Jets are saying that with Flacco. Like, you guys don't understand how good Flacco is. He's been playing awesome. Like we think we can win a couple games if Zach's not ready to go week 1. Like they're putting that out already. And they're not alone, right? If you've been following football, this consistently happens our entire life. But then eventually when that guy gets thrown in, you're like, well, they were a little off, you know? It's hard, partly because it's very, very difficult, right? It's definitely the position where there are like 15 guys that you feel good about, and about 7 of those everyone talks shit about as well.
And anytime a backup quarterback plays, it's a bad situation. They're being, by nature, by definition,
suspended.
They're being put in a bad situation. You know, your emergency contact, you just made me think of this, is not necessarily your best friend. It's somebody you trust the most because they need to answer the phone when you are in an emergency. And backup quarterbacks are emergency contacts. So it's not necessarily about trying to find the most talented.
That's why my mother calls my brother.
It's not about trying to find, well, if he doesn't answer, then, you know, you better answer.
He is next door, but
it's not about trying to find the most talent. It is about having a trustworthy person. I got a DM from somebody today who actually told me that they ran into you at the Bay Club many years ago, who's friends with Sudfeld's family, because Sudfeld's from like Modesto or something.
Did you know that?
I
I've
did
heard
not
people
know it
talk about it
until
recently, but
until this person DM'd me, and I was like, wait a second, why are you friends with the Sudfelds? And he said, people, he kind of got a rep as Kirk Cousins Jr. back when they were in Washington together. Jay Gruden and Sean McVay drafted Nate Sudfeld. That's who was in charge of, Kyle wasn't there, but it was Sean McVay and Jay Gruden was the head coach as a 6th-round pick. So, yeah, I mean, I think you could argue there's just quite a bit of trust there. And a lot of it goes to the value of having him around Trey Lance, especially with an inexperienced. I know Brian Griese played. Brian Griese could handle the Lions staff. He'd probably be the Lions. Well, him and Brunell, that'd be a good team. Brunell against Griese. But there's probably a value, right? Nate Sudfeld's been in more QB meetings in the last 5 years than Brian Griese has.
do you know where I think Sudfeld is hard for us out west? Is he played in Indiana. He played in the Big Ten, and he played at one of the worst Big Ten schools, so we don't watch him.
Yeah.
But then you find out, you're like, well, he's a West Coast guy. How'd he end up at Indiana? I just pulled up his wiki. He was actually committed to go to Arizona it would have been, probably the 2010 or 11. Yeah, it would have been 11. And then I think Stoops got fired. That's probably when Rich Rod came in. Well, obviously Sudfeld's not a Rich Rod guy. And that's when he signed with Indiana, which you would say it feels like has run more pro-style stuff. Isn't Tedford? Wasn't the Fresno State guy? Didn't he go there for a minute and come back? So it's like they run a real NFL program. And then, like you said, it was Sean McVay and Jay Gruden. I honestly I didn't even know that until we just talked it out. Makes me understand him a lot more. Doug, West Coast guy, right? That's his offensive philosophy. I know he changed, right? He became more like RPO stuff, but like Doug Peterson at his core played for Mike Shula and Andy Reid in the 90s. Like that's who taught him football. I get Nate Sudfeld a lot more now that I kind of look at his bio and kind of just see, because I guess in my mind it's like Modesto, like, so what I probably my own fault. It's pretty easy to look these guys up. I assumed he was like a JC transfer and he was just kind of like an undrafted free agent. Then once you're at practice, you're like, I get it. I see that he looks the part, probably a smart guy. But he was drafted. I bet a lot of teams around the league, every guy that's going to get drafted at quarterback, a quarterback coach, an offensive coordinator, it doesn't matter if Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback, Tom Brady, or, Jalen Hurts. You evaluate the quarterbacks every year. I saw, what was Kyle talking about? Oh, he's talking about Kevin O'Connell. And he's like, we've never worked together, but, what's funny is my first year as a quarterback coach is when he was coming out in the draft. And I remember vividly watching him at San Diego State because he was a guy going to go in like the top 3 or 4 rounds. And so you just get as a position coach or a coordinator, and as a coordinator, I mean, the most important position is the quarterback. You do get a pretty good, like you spend a lot of time for a couple months in the offseason getting to kind of know these guys. Usually, how often do you see like, this guy worked out with 30 of the teams? It's just a natural part of the business. And quarterbacks, I mean, who do they ultimately like the most? Other quarterbacks, right? Or offensive coordinators. Who do they like talking with? Quarterbacks. Because what do quarterbacks talk like? Coaches, kind of, right? So it's just, I get this. I do. Because you and I got Brock Purdy. We're like, this guy's pretty highly touted. He, the picture that went viral yesterday, he was the Arizona Player of the Year in high school, helped make Iowa State have like their best 3 or 4 years ever. Remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, it was senior night and Campbell was crying. And he said after the game, this is the most successful senior class in the history of this program. And it happens every once in a while at a big program, right? They go on a great run. When I say a big program, like a Power 5 program that just has like their best win-losses over a 3 or 4 year period, and the coach is so proud of like that senior class. They're like, these guys changed it for us. Fitzgerald's done it before. It just happens every once in a while at a program, not like Ohio State or Alabama, because that's like impossible, but like at a program like Iowa State. And I get Purdy. Like his only knock, it was on NFL Network the other day, like just the Niner game. Click on Niner Packers. I'm like, oh, they're rerunning like the regular season game. It was like, no, the preseason game. But I was like, I just kind of left it on, had the volume on in the background, like cooking dinner. And one thing Tim Ryan says, now Tim Ryan can be a little hyperbolic, but it was like, if this guy was 6'4", I think he would have been in the mix. He said a first-round pick. But I do believe him that, or I do agree that if he was 6'4", he would have been a much more talked about prospect maybe second, third round, but he wouldn't have been Mr. Irrelevant, right? I mean, the knock on him is he's tiny. If he was Nate Sudfeld's height, he would have been drafted much higher. Now, how high? He doesn't have. Sudfeld has a better arm.
He might have a better arm if he was Nate Sudfeld's height, but Sudfeld has a good. One thing this guy DM'd me the other day was one of the reasons Sudfeld was going to go to Arizona was because him and Foles were tight.
Did you know that?
No,
so you knew that he was going to go to Arizona.
Oh no, only because of this DM I got the other day.
Well, who does he? Doesn't he kind of have Nick Foles vibes?
Well, yeah, and I think Foles is a very high level guy, and clearly Nate has a lot of that too. So
Arizona was sneaky on some like pretty right quarterbacks with Stoops' brother.
Yeah,
who's the worst brother, right?
Mike. Mark is the one at Kentucky.
Yeah, Bob and Mike. Mike was absolute batshit crazy. Like I think he was kind of like, remember Ed Ogeron at Ole Miss, where it's like he is just nuts. Yeah, I think Mike had kind of vibes like that, like when in his Arizona stint. But
is he somebody's defensive coordinator now?
Yeah, Lincoln fired him.
He's at Kentucky. He's a linebacker coach at Kentucky. He was the DC.
How did he get that job?
He was the DC at FAU last year.
Gotcha.
How to get that job? Yeah. Anthony on the stream says Don Yee's playing 4D chess. Brady won't retire till the Niners cut Jimmy at the end of August. I don't know if Brady's just here to be a pawn for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I don't think he's in cahoots on that one.
Two other quick things, John, before we go. This little note here. Mike McDaniel says, wrong one. Mike McDaniel says that Tua is the most accurate throws the most accurate catchable ball I've ever seen. You know, Tua was 68% completion percentage last year. Could be worse for a second-year quarterback, and 65% his rookie year.
I think the knock was downfield throwing.
16 touchdowns, 10 picks.
Because I heard someone talking about Jalen Waddle, like his yards per catch for a guy with had like 90 catches were pretty low. Well, why? He's probably getting a lot of screens and like wheel routes, right?
Might get some more of those this year.
I think he's going to get a ton.
Bijan Robinson, Texas's running back. One of the top players in all of college football. Have you seen his NIL promotion?
No.
He has mustard called Bijan Mustardson. It's Dijon mustard. And it says, it tastes like a touchdown in your mouth. I don't know what that means, but
I think that's pretty good. Don't you?
It's pretty good. Yep. Bijan Robinson's Bijan Mustardson. It's like a touchdown in your mouth. It's made in Austin, Texas. So maybe
what did you see the NIL one going viral of the guy like auto insurance or
the coldest?
What was that? Where did that guy play? North Dakota?
Nebraska, but his name is Coldest. So it's for air conditioners.
Oh yeah, HVAC units. It is
the Coldest Crawford.
People forget, and most people
that
never
commercial
saw
is pretty poorly executed. But
if you grew up in the Sacramento area in the heyday of the Kings, Vlade, Peja, Mike Bibby, they used to do these car commercials that are just, if you watched it now, honestly, it would feel more like the 70s than like 1999.
The three of them in this tiny little convertible.
My favorite part about that HVAC commercial, and I would imagine he is not alone. Wouldn't you imagine if you went to some SEC programs in smaller communities, there would be similar commercials?
Yeah.
They are truly pretty great, right?
You mean because they're bad?
Yeah, but just because I do think that the person on the other end filming it is trying, and it's so cheesy, but they're not trying to be that cheesy. That's just they're just trying to make.
They are limited by their production budget.
Yeah.
Although I did see Josh Kelly, the receiver for Fresno State, has a commercial for like a local bank in Fresno, and the production is very good.
What does he say? I bank here, come bank here, get best rates.
He's like in a parking lot, and they do the little date and time at the bottom, like the classic Sports Center. Remember, every Sports Center ad would say like 9:43, July 17th. You know how they do that. Yeah. They show the bank, and then he's just in the parking lot, like he catches a ball behind his head, he catches a ball behind his butt, and then like one of the bank employees steps in. He's like, "All right, I got this." He's like, "All right, Jennifer, throw it in there." And Jennifer like throws a bullet as the guy has his back to Jennifer, and it just hits the guy in the back of the head and ricochets off. I mean, I don't really know what the point was, but the production value was very good. The production value was good.
We're just, you live in bigger cities, you're not going to get those commercials as much as the smaller towns that, let's face it, kind of resonate.
It's what's great about watching. I'll tell you this. I was watching the Jags game on NFL Plus the other day. The NFL preseason broadcasts have the local commercials. Trevor Lawrence is part of one of the worst. I mean, it is a terrible, terrible commercial. He's like, "Hi, I'm Trevor Lawrence. You already know about the great care that you get from Henderson Orthopedics. You know what? I'm going to call an audible on this commercial. I'm going to tell you about the great people at Henderson Orthopedics." I mean, it is so bad. It is so bad. I wish you could just watch a Jags game for that commercial, but
I'm going to end on this. I was with a guy who knew a guy very closely that was the doctor, main doctor in the Vegas area. And he's like, you get compensated usually. Like, he worked with the Knights and they pay you. You know, this guy's a successful doctor.
Right.
You know, Tiger's gone to him. Like, you get the doctor. Like, I don't need you for the publicity. I'm good at it. I'm a sports guy. I want to be. But it's like, it's not worth my time. Like, I'm not just coming to hockey games, right?
Yeah. And it's a little risky, right? Like
the Raiders moved to town. He's like, hey, man, they went to him naturally. He left after a year. They don't pay. It's like, you know,
they don't pay at all, or they pay poorly.
Zero. They just think like, oh, you want to be part of us, the NFL? He's like, yeah, no, I don't need you. Like, I'm a successful doctor here.
If you want the best for your highly trained athletes, important assets, you should use me.
Tiger
and pay me for my work. That's how this works. Yeah. Who everyone, you get paid. This is a business, makes the world go around.
This isn't 1987, guys. Time to adapt here.
We're not working in trade here.
Wasn't trying to end with a shot at the Raiders, but it's just, I did get the story, wanted to relay it to people.
So happened to be the last thing we talked about. All right, the Saturday preseason game. We'll be there afterwards. We'll be here on YouTube. So tune in for that Saturday night. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of. We got games Thursday. We got games Friday. We got games Saturday. We got games Sunday. John will have full reports of all the preseason games coming up on Saturday night. Can't wait for that insight. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Much love. Keep it real. Yeah.
Deuces.